Friends, if you want to watch super hit movie Kill 'Em All 2 in English, then you must like this video. If you are visiting our channel for the first time, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Friends, in today's video, the movie we're going to talk about is called Kill 'Em All 2. We will talk about what this movie is and where you can watch it. All the interesting about this movie in today's video. I am going to tell you. I am also going to give you all the information on which I request you friends to watch this video to the end. So let's start the video. Kill 'Em All 2 is a 2024 American direct-to-video action film directed by Valery Milovand, written by James Agnew. It is a direct sequel to Kill 'Em All, 2017, and stars Jean-Claude Van Damme, Jacqueline Fernandez, Peter Stormare, and Maria Conchita Alonso. Kill 'Em All 2 was released on digital on September 24, 2024. Plot: Philip comes face to face with a Russian-French terrorist who comes to exact vengeance on him for killing his brother. Cast: Jean-Claude Van Damme as Philip, Jacqueline Fernandez as Vanessa, Peter Stormare as CIA agent Holman, Maria Conchita Alonso as FBI agent Sanders. Production. In December 2023, a sequel to Kill 'Em All 2017 was announced, with Jean-Claude Van Damme reprising his role as Philip, with principal photography beginning in January 2024. Release: Kill 'Em All 2 was released on digital on September 24, 2024. Review: I don't think anyone was desperately waiting for a sequel to Kill 'Em All, which remains one of JCVD's worst films, so I went into this follow-up with low expectations. This is surprisingly a far superior film to the first. And dare I say it, I had a fun time with it. It has plenty of flaws, like the usual use of body doubles in a lot of the fight scenes, and Van Damme's voice is badly mimicked during a phone call scene, which goes back to the days of Seagal's straight-to-video movies, where he didn't even finish recording the dialogue. Kill 'Em All 2 is pleasingly short, running at around 85 minutes long, and there is enough action packed into the runtime to keep things moving. Peter Stormare plays the usual two-faced friend, which he seems to get typecast in. He's actually very nice in real life. Andre Lennart plays the main villain Vlad Petrovich, who wants revenge after Philip, JCVD, killed his brother in the last film. Philip is living a comfortable life with his daughter, but when Vlad's men come calling, they find themselves in harm's way once again. I will always be a JCVD apologist, and even if nobody likes a film of his, I will usually defend it, just because he's my childhood hero. This is generic stuff plot-wise, but I like a simple actioner which does exactly what you expect. I don't even remember much about the first film, but it did have the bonus of Daniel Bernhard as the antagonist. The villains here are mostly Eastern European stereotypes that make little impact, and I would have preferred a proper hand-to-hand fight with Vlad at the end. I must say, I was surprised when I first heard a sequel to Kill 'Em All 2017 was being produced. Personally, I felt it was one Jean-Claude Van Damme's poorest starring vehicles, easily on par with the lackluster Derailed, 2001. This was a shame, as there were talented people both in front and behind the camera. Obviously, it was great to see Van Damme in action, but overall the film just felt lifeless, with it being sorely lacking in energy. Some decent fight scenes didn't really make up for the poor script and some poor directorial choices. It's unclear what went so wrong. Director Peter Malota may have been making his directorial debut, but he had an extensive stunt background, with him working on a number of Van Damme films dating back to the likes of Double Impact, 1991, and Universal Soldier, 1992. So he had a working knowledge of what makes an action movie work. Yet, this seems to have eluded him during the making of Kill 'Em All, with the film being filled with unnecessary flashbacks that just slowed the film down. A definite no-no in a Van Damme film. Then there was the quality supporting cast, with the likes of Peter Stormare, Maria Conchita Alonso, and Daniel Bernhard, who all should have raised the film above your typical DTV fare. Unfortunately, they were mostly wasted. At least, Van Damme got to face off against Bernhard, but by that point in the film, it was too little too late. It really should have been more of an event in the movie, especially when you consider Bernhard got his start in the business by replacing Van Damme in the Bloodsport franchise. Being such a massive Van Damme fan, I still had to watch the sequel. But with all my misgivings about the original film, I didn't exactly enter Kill 'Em All 2 with high expectations. Thankfully, I'm happy to say the sequel is a major improvement over the original, that while still having a good few production issues, kept me entertained for its 90-minute runtime. The film's opening recaps the events of the first film, so it's not necessary to have watched the original before delving in. We are reintroduced to the mysterious Philip, Jean-Claude Van Damme, who is living the quiet life in Italy with his daughter Vanessa, Jacqueline Fernandez. With every trace of him being wiped clean, Philip is surprised to find a hit team attempting to take him and his daughter out. Holding photos of him, it would appear that Philip's identity and location has been leaked, with Philip reaching out to ex-CIA agent Holman, Peter Stormare, for help in finding out who is looking for him. It doesn't take long before finding out that this attack is the work of Vlad Petrovich, Andrei Leonard, who is looking for revenge for what Philip did to his brother during the events of the first movie. Now Philip will have to rely on all his old skills if he and Vanessa are to survive. Original director Peter Milota doesn't return for the sequel, with the chair being filled by Valery Milev. Looking at Milev's back catalog didn't exactly fill me with joy, as his previous film Bullets of Justice, 2019, had me struggling to reach the end. However, he did helm the enjoyable Re-Kill, 2015, which did well considering it was a low-budget found-footage movie. He does a solid enough job with Kill 'Em All too. There isn't anything overtly stylish or groundbreaking about the movie, but for the most part, Milev keeps the pace tight, filling his film with a good helping of violent action scenes. One issue that can't be overcome, no matter how bone-crunching the action was, is the obvious use of stunt doubles. Although Van Damme clearly does a fair bit of the action himself, his double can be noticed numerous times throughout the film. Sometimes it's to have Van Damme carry out moves that would be inconceivable for him to pull off these days. But other times it would seem a double was used mainly because Van Damme was unavailable. On top of the doubling is the use of atrocious ADR dubbing. It is relegated to one scene, but it's so blatantly standouts, it can't help but lose the film some points. It is used during a telephone conversation between Van Damme and the main villain. It is so clearly not Van Damme's voice that it becomes laughable. What's worse was that the dialogue is completely unnecessary. The scene could have been cut and had absolutely no impact on the completed film. It brought to mind the awful dubbing that appeared in a great deal of Steven Seagal's output in the 2000s. Milev's film is helped considerably by some beautiful locations which add to the production values. Cinematographer Angelo Stramaglia does a decent job of capturing these, as well as the action, even if it does have that overlit digital look on many occasions. It would also seem that Stramaglia was bought a drone for his Christmas, as he uses it excessively during certain points during the film. Like the earlier Darkness of Man, 2024, Kill 'Em All 2 would never be considered top-tier Van Damme. That's fine with me, as I never expected it to be. Personally, I'm just glad to see the martial arts legend still making movies, even if they'll never rank amongst classics like Bloodsport, 1988, and Hard Target, 1993. What still makes Van Damme's films stick out from other stars from his era, i.e. the previously mentioned Steven Seagal, is that he still appears committed in giving his audience what they want. His role here doesn't exactly stretch him, but he also never phones it in. One refreshing part of Van Damme's character was his relationship with his daughter. Initially, when I saw the cast list, I presumed Jacqueline Fernandez's character would be the love interest. I didn't expect they would cast someone age-appropriate to play his daughter, but the filmmakers have taken into consideration Van Damme's increasing years. This is apparent during the action where he takes more punishment than he would have in the past, with the fights clearly taking a toll on him. Only on a few occasions does the film betray this by having Van Damme's Philip pull off a somersault or some other flashy kick. I was quite surprised by Fernandez's involvement, considering the amount of big-budget blockbusters she starred in back in India. Kill 'Em All 2 is certainly a smaller-scale production from what I'm used to seeing her in, but at the same time could possibly open her up to a wider audience. Her role doesn't call for her to really stretch her acting muscles, But thankfully, she isn't the typical defenseless daughter that needs rescuing. Fernandez's Vanessa more than gets in on the action, holding her own in several of the film's action scenes. A couple of actors from the first film also show up, linking the film to what came before. Most important of these is Peter Stormare, who once again chews the scenery as the shady Holman. Let go from the CIA? Holman is now a free agent. Stormare has fun with whether that's a good or bad thing. In parts, it almost appears as if Milev just told Stormare to do what he likes. It certainly works for the film, with Stormare injecting a jolt of energy into proceedings. Maria Conchita Alonso, on the other hand, does very little, only appearing in a handful of scenes that look like they could have all been shot in the same day. Her appearance does move the plot along somewhat, but her scenes wouldn't have been missed if they were removed. Andre Lennart is sleazily evil as the film's main villain Vlad, but he never comes across as a viable threat when facing off against Van Damme. At least he is surrounded by enough disposable henchmen that Van Damme's Philip has to work his way through, which works towards keeping the excitement levels high. Interestingly, one such henchman is played by Van Damme's own son Chris, who he brutally dispatches during the film's violent opening. Viewers of the first film will remember Chris played one of his father's pursuers, even facing off against his old man in one of a few of the film's worthwhile moments. He plays a different character here, albeit his screen time is fleeting. Of the two Van Damme films this year, I would put Kill 'Em All 2 slightly under Darkness of Man. Still, I was pleasantly surprised how much of an improvement it was on the first film. There's enough here to keep action and Van Damme fans satisfied, even if you'll probably not find yourself returning to it. When mid-range stars reach their zenith and find themselves soon after plummeting to the vast and infinite void of straight-to-video schlock, they still have a choice to maintain a modicum of dignity when it comes to what they bring to the table. Steven Seagal evidently chose instead to maintain a sense of entitlement that left most of what he worked on post-90s as being inadvertently entertaining in spite of him. Bruce Willis had a pretty big reason not to bring his A-game. Stallone curiously elected to only commit to projects he took an interest in, otherwise content to Expendables 4 his way through a brain-numbing paycheck cameo. But the flip side is the Cage approach. No matter how stupid the film, how cheap, how seemingly demeaning the ask, he committed at a dialed-up to 11 level to it. Want him to be a mute janitor who has to fight of some evil giant animatronic mascots? He's your man. Or go on a revenge-fueled journey to recover a stolen pig? Yep, he'll be there. Maybe you need him to do a mission in a post-apocalyptic realm with explosives attached to his testicles? He will bring his own bombs. Nick Cage has almost never not turned up acting defiantly like he's in a far better production with a much bigger budget, and never once giving the impression that he's above this level of guff. In terms of action stars, Dolph Lundgren has maintained this kind of integrity across his whole career, for whatever little good it's done him. But Van Damme actually spent a pretty bad patch being a diva in Hollywood before he had to pick himself up off the floor and wade through the quagmire of DTV. But wade he did, turning in a few gems along the way. Now, a couple of decades later, and the 63-year-old, who hasn't had a live-action release since 2021's Netflix effort The Last Mercenary, returns to DTV with not one, but two 2024 flicks. The first was Darkness of Man, which offered an older, more seasoned role for the actor. Still on a shoestring, and not wholly effective, but decent enough and with a committed Van Damme on board for the duration. The second, Kill 'Em All 2, is none of those things. And it's hard to see any reason for why he made it beyond those that are purely financially driven. In 2017, Van Damme did one of his weaker DTV actioners, the monotone Kill 'Em All, which was weak on the action front and noteworthy only perhaps for a brief but decent final bout between Van Damme and Matrix John Wick legend Daniel Bernhardt. Not even in the vaguest bit memorable, even for ardent Van Damme fans, who would likely prefer sequels to any other film in his filmography above this one. Some genius producer out there clearly decided this was a franchise name to pre-sell at Cannes, commissioning a sequel that looks like it was shot in a day. With ADR, not done by Van Damme, in the cheapest location possible, with a nonsense script that made no sense but was very obviously a complete ripoff of The Equalizer 3, and a bunch of non-actors coupled with aged vets that need to pay for their pet dog's expensive tastes and top hats. Then there's Van Damme, who appears visibly exhausted by every single action sequence he limps through, and yet has a stunt double who can do a reverse vertical flip at the drop of a hat. It's almost like they asked him whether he would like to do a Kill 'Em All 2, and his answer was an honest, "Sure, but who was in the first one? I'm no longer insured to kick above knee level, but if you sit on the floor, I can maybe reach your head." Kill 'Em All 2 doesn't even try to make any sense. Picking up after the events of the first movie, and Van Damme's clandestine operative is now being hunted by the man whose brother he killed, having been captured on CCTV footage after the hospital incident. Reuniting with his daughter, who is given zero introduction, and who has an absolutely hilarious, very delayed reaction. "I killed someone," so far into the movie that you understandably would go, "Wait, did I miss something?" No, you didn't. The filmmakers intentionally left entire chunks of the script out because there was no script. He meets old friends, gets them into trouble too, the inept villain abuses his girlfriend because I'm a villain, and then they have a final face-off. The end. It's woefully bad. Bad Boys 2's Peter Stormare turns up for lunch money and sells his soul. The Running Man's Maria Conchita Alonso also turns up too. For pocket money. They were both briefly in the first film, apparently, but you wouldn't remember that because it too was awful. And, generally, the mind has a way of forgetting bland, monotone crap. Which is possibly the only saving grace about having to endure this. Still, for all this, the entire movie could have been tolerable if Van Damme had been even 50% invested. If he'd helped put together some fight sequences even remotely plausible for him to partake in, this may have been watchable. And stunt doubles are commonplace, and have been for him since forever, as the 4K of Hard Target shows very clearly. But it can still be tastefully done, as if it's within the realms of possibility for the guy. A massive reverse spinning mid-air roll, and perfectly placed knee landing on some guy's chest? What? Where did that come from? Earlier on, this character got his foot stuck in a door when he kicked it. So you ask, desperate at this point, maybe then there could possibly be some so bad it's good entertainment value here, in a seagull's belly of the beast kind of way? No. Not really. Kill 'Em All is so badly stitched together it's hard to watch. A dull thud of a sequel to a movie that people would have been already warned off from watching, hoping to capture an audience who will literally watch anything with the word kill in the title. Kill 'Em All 2 picks up 7 years after the events of the original, which makes sense since there's 7 years between the films. With Philip, Jean-Claude Van Damme, the last mercenary, Hard Target, reconnected with his daughter Vanessa, Jacqueline Fernandez, Mrs. Serial Killer, Tell It Like a Woman, and the two of them hiding out in southern Italy. They obviously didn't do a good job of it, as within the film's first few minutes, they're attacked by goons working for Vlad Petrovich, André Lenart, Kingsman, the Secret Service, crossing over, who is out to avenge the death of his brother Dmitri, who was killed in the first film. This puts them on the run, trying to stay alive long enough to deal with Vlad and his crew, and the only way to do that is to kill them all. I haven't seen the original, and to be honest, I'd actually forgotten it existed until I looked it up on IMDb, so I can't compare the two. And that might be a good thing, as apart from a mostly new cast, Kill 'Em All 2 also has a new director, Valery Milev, Re-Kill, Bullets of Justice, and writer Jim Agnew, Giallo, The Capture. They've delivered a fairly standard DTV action film that allows for 2 other characters from the first film, Agents Holman, Peter Stormare, the Ritual Killer, Constantine, and Sanders, Maria Conchita Alonso, Fear City, Predator 2, to make brief appearances. In the case of Alonso, it's more like a cameo that looks like it was shot in her living room. Actress Talia Asaraf, Nightcaller, Skincare, also returns, but playing a new character, which may be confusing to those who have seen the original. And when I say they've delivered a standard plot, I mean it. You'll be 2 steps ahead of Kill 'Em All 2's characters, almost from the start. It's the usual assortment of double and triple crosses, as characters plot revenge centered around a flash drive worth millions. This leads to infiltrating bank vaults and impenetrable villas, car chases, and fights against as many enemies as a low budget will buy, which isn't many. Thankfully, while sparsely populated and fairly generic, apart from some creatively brutal blade work, Kill 'Em All 2's fight scenes are reasonably frequent and competently executed. Stunt coordinator Simone Belli, Once Upon a Time in London Ferrari, gets help from a surprisingly agile Van Damme, who still has decent moves, even if the look of pain on his face after a high kick near the start is the most believable thing in the film. Cinematographer Angelo Stramaglia, Hard Night Falling, Almost Dead, and composer Aldo Schlacku, The Comeback Trail, The Price We Pay, help keep Kill 'Em All 2 moving along on its way to a final confrontation that involves some weapons left over from World War II, and a nice visual reference to the Charles Bronson film The Evil That Men Do. In the end, Kill 'Em All 2 is a serviceable DTV action film and nothing more, but it also makes no claim to be anything else. Even the cast realize this, and half the fun is watching Linhart and Stormare chew the scenery. Van Damme fans will enjoy seeing him kick ass, but that's all there is on offer here. It's not on the level of Van Damme's other recent release, Darkness of Man, but it's still better than anything Steven Seagal has done in the past 20 years. It's too bad that's all it is, because Milev has shown flashes of potential in the past, but none of it is on display here. Kill 'Em All 2 is available on digital and VOD platforms from Sony Pictures Home Entertainment. Distributed by Destination Films. Release date, September 24th, 2024. Running time, 88 minutes. Country United States. Language English. So guys, this is the review of Kill 'Em All 2 movie, and some information about it. How do you like our today's video? Please let us know by commenting, and if you like this video, please like it, share it, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.